So this time last year, beginning of January, we were going through a difficult time. Rory was home with us under the care of myself and his partner Danielle. And we were coming to terms with the fact that his cancer was now terminal, but he was still able to enjoy some of the things that made him happy, his music and watching Manchester United and playing the PlayStation with his friends when they could call. Little did we know that that was all going to change as a result of Storm Éowyn at the end of January 2025. Using a baby monitor for him to call us. So I was asleep in bed, half three in the morning, and I realised the baby monitor was no longer working. I got up and discovered we had no power. This continued for, I think it was 8 days in total that we were out of power. It was the most upsetting thing that has ever happened to any of us. To think that this storm and all it took away from us, it really, well, we'll never forget it. And it really finished Rory. That's what took away the last couple of things that he really enjoyed. For those last few weeks, we were on edge at all times, because when the power did come back, it might flicker and go off, and it was like PST. We would think, oh, it's going to happen again. You know, we better get the power, the candles out, the torches out, get the gas rings set up. And Rory didn't seem to appreciate how difficult this was. Like, he would look for a takeaway and we'd say, we might be able to get one today because there is no power in the local chipper. They mightn't have power, or shops that normally were open, now they weren't open. And it really impacted definitely on the quality of his life for those last few weeks. Now, we were offered help in the form of moving him to a hotel in Tuam for a few nights, but that really wasn't an option. He found it very difficult walking, and moving him to a car was just out of the question. And the last time we did move him was in early January, and he got very sick just travelling to Galway. It ruined the last couple of weeks of his life, which could have been, you know, a slightly maybe nicer time. It was coming into springtime, and the weather, apart from the storm, the weather was beginning to improve. Like when he did die in March, the daffodils were out and the bluebells were out, and the day of his removal from the house, like, it was a warm, sunny day, and it was the most upsetting thing that has ever happened to any of us. And to think that this storm and all it took away from us, it really, well, we'll never forget it. And that we hear about a storm, it just all comes flooding back, and we think, oh my God, that really finished Rory. That's what, apart from being a very good student, Rory was a great musician. He absolutely loved playing guitar. His idol was Rory Gallagher. He was called after him. He played Rory's music to the best of his ability. He played Ballyshannon as a busker from 2010, and then he played on the main stages in various pubs and at the Rory Gallagher statue and on the square and various points in Ballyshannon every single year. His last Ballyshannon was 2022. We actually played it after COVID, and he was still quite sick, but he postponed chemo that year just so that he could play Ballyshannon. His oncologist knew that Ballyshannon came before any chemo. And no matter how sick he was, he made sure he was fit enough to play for 2 or 3 hours, and then he'd go back to bed and play again at night. The last concert Rory played was in Dunmore, at the Dunmore Festival. In 2024, he played in Walsh's Pub. He played a Rory Gallagher commemorative night, and there was lots of old rockers turned up there, and they couldn't believe that this young man could play.
I'm so sorry.
That he could play so well. Then there was a whole other side to Rory's music that he played with his dying cow friends. These were the guys who play every second Friday night in Wicklow. in the Dying Cow pub on the Wicklow Way. And there he played old style music, some rebel songs, and some of the former hits of the 60s and 70s, Simon and Garfunkel and some of the Beatles. Any song that you liked, if you mentioned it to Rory, you could be sure he'd look it up and he'd be able to play it for you the following week. He played in Tinhealy once a month. Again, similar type of music. And he played in Ballinabrana in Carlow at a rambling house once a month. There he played traditional tunes, promoting Irish music. And he loved just to entertain. He liked nothing better than a good old session. It didn't matter who was listening, whether they sang along or clapped or just enjoyed the music.
It sounds like such a talent. I've seen some of your videos on Instagram of him as well, and he just seems like a real fun-loving guy, you know. And I can't begin to describe how I'm sorry I am, and I think we all are, you know that. But it doesn't help your loss. I understand.
Only this Friday I got tapes of him playing from an American visitor who visited the Dying Cow over, I think it was a year and a half ago, and he was back this year, and he mentioned to Connor and the Cow crew, as they called it, about this young man that they heard playing, and he was shocked when he heard that he had died. And he actually sent me some clips of Rory playing that he had kept on his phone. That's the impression that he left.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that people still think of you, Joan, you know. Still think of your pain and your loss. It's you've not had it easy, have you?
Well, it's just coming up to the first anniversary, so we're trying to get his headstone up and put something memorable on it. And all these things are milestones that we have to get over. But as my grief counsellor was saying, like, grief isn't really a journey. It's there all the time, but it's just there's different kind of things that you go through, and they say it might get easier, and some say it doesn't. You just get to accept it. So that's all I can do. Hope I get through this anniversary of the storm, and then the anniversary of his death, and the anniversary of his birthday, which was the 27th of March. He would be 30 this year, 27th of March. And,
so he didn't even make his 30th birthday?
He didn't even make his 29th. And I know this time last year, when he was quite sick in January, and shortly after the storm, he seemed to rally a little bit. And I remember his hospice nurse saying, you know, I can't believe the will he has to live. And I said to her, do you think he'll make his birthday? And she said, of course he will. And the morning that he died, that same nurse rang me to see, she wanted to organise cover for that night. He died on a Friday, and she was organising cover for the Friday night. And I said, I really don't think he's going to need cover tonight. I think he should just hurry, and you might be able to say goodbye to him. And he was actually dead by the time she got here.
Oh, God.
He died at 9:30 in the morning.
I'm so sorry, Joan.
Was Dad did the plantation that was passed on to me from my father. Planted about 25 years ago. Not due to be clear-filled for maybe another 10 years. But after Storm Éowyn last January, it's just changed everything. We drove up here the next morning because we knew, well, there was going to be damage, but we couldn't believe what we seen. It was just pure and utter devastation. This picture was taken a week after Storm Éowyn, just 90% forestry down.
If you have a plan in place for life and your family, your family's education and your own retirement, and it's all based on an investment you made 20, 25 years ago, and suddenly you arrive after the storm and all your plans are in shreds, it's bound to take its toll on any individual.
Here at Barna Woods, a very beautiful and very popular spot with walkers and joggers outside Galway City, they turned the devastation of Storm Éowyn into art. The City Council commissioned the chainsaw sculptor Will Fogarty to produce these beautiful carvings out of the trees that have fallen in the woods, including this beautiful eagle here. There's also an owl, a seal chasing a fish, a spirit of the forest, and a tree house.
I'm standing here outside the home of Maureen Folan in Carna, County Galway. The roof of Maureen's house was blown off during Storm Éowyn. Our neighbour has set up a GoFundMe account with the goal of €100,000 to rebuild her house, and house has been rebuilt for Maureen a year after Storm Éowyn.
Cards is one of our committees, and I suppose during the last storm we understood the need to be more prepared and weather prepared for storms, and especially for outages like the electricity and telecommunication. And we bought, I suppose, a few essential items like blankets for heat, warmth, flasks so that we could supply our elderly community with hot water, soup, flasks and hot water bottles. And another essential item was power banks for phones and torches.
Not only did we lose all connection to the outside world, but we were left there. People felt abandoned. There's an extra element here as far as it being a Gaeltacht area, and if you're going to try and keep a population in a Gaeltacht area to speak the language, you need to make sure they can make phone calls, and need to make sure they can ring the doctor.